In last episode, we said that the Vietnam economy data looks not so optimistic. So now I'm going to analyze the economic prospect in Vietnam. Now Vietnam is experiencing temporary economic difficulty because Vietnam economy relies on EU and USA significantly. The annual import and export value of Vietnam is $683 billion US dollar, in which the EU and USA import export comes to 207 billion USD. The export is 166 billion US dollar, import 41 billion US dollar. So the gap is the trade surplus, which is 125 billion US dollar. The Vietnam country total trade surplus is 280 billion US dollar. So in the year 2022, Vietnam trade surplus against the USA is 95 billion US dollar. Against the EU, the surplus is 33 billion US dollar. But the Vietnam country revenue is low. So the basic infrastructure is backward, which had seriously impacted its economic development. However, we have to look at some of Vietnam's advantages. Now, many international conglomerates is building mega factories in north of Vietnam. For example, Taiwan Foxconn. Now, Taiwan Foxconn had built 5 factories in Vietnam. All of them are doing normal production now. Also, Foxconn has another 10 factories under construction in Vietnam. So Vietnam production only covers 4% of Foxconn world production capacity. But after all Foxconn factories completes in Vietnam, its capacity will be increased to 10% in Foxconn worldwide capacity. Besides, Vietnam has another 2 advantages. The first is the global tax rate change. Following EU, Vietnam in 2024 adopted worldwide unified tax, which is 15%. If your company's annual sales revenue exceeds 750 billion euro, you can enjoy this worldwide unified tax. Previously in Vietnam, in some of its economic zones, the tax will be even reduced to half, only 10%, plus another extra exemptions. Your factory actual tax may be only 5%. So now Vietnam adopted unified 15% tax rate. So in the next 10 years, more and more companies will come to the end of its tax exemption period, by that time, the Vietnam country tax revenue will increase significantly. So the government will have abundant finance to put into construction of its infrastructures. By that time, Vietnam economy will get into a fast lane. Now let's look at the GDP per capita. In Vietnam is 4,300 US dollar. According to international experience, 4,000 US dollar is a breakthrough point. Once your GDP per capita exceeds 4,000 US dollar, the economy will accelerate. We can see China had also experienced the same periods. China GDP per capita exceeded 4,000 US dollar in the year 2010. In year 2019, this figure increased to 10,000 US dollar only after 9 years. So in general, in the next coming 10 years, Vietnam economy will speed up. Also, we have to look at American election. If Mr. Trump wins the election, he will most probably increase tax on China import commodities. So more China factories will have to move into other countries, say Asian, Mexico, Turkey. But among them, the biggest beneficiary will be Vietnam, because Vietnam culture is also Confucius, very similar to China, and Vietnam, the labor quality in Vietnam is the best among the Asian countries. Now the Vietnam government has stipulated plans for year 2030, 2050. In 2030, the target GDP per capita is 7,500 US dollar, which is achievable. By year 2050, Vietnam will become an advanced country like Korea. Now let's look at Korea. In 2022, Korea GDP per capita is 32,400 US dollar. So the Vietnam target is between 27,000 and 32,000 US dollar per capita by the year 2050. So from now on, if Vietnam can maintain its annual GDP at 7% increase, this target will be realized. So during this whole process, there will be emerged multiple opportunities.